Well, good morning, everyone. Bon matin tout le monde et bienvenue à ce webinar. Welcome to this morning's Zoom webinar presented by the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Moncton. My name is John Wishart and I'm CEO at the Chamber, and I'll be your host for today's session. We're very pleased to have with us today Beverly Summers, the CEO and founder of Smart Human Resource Solutions, Inc. She will talk to us about strategies to keep our best talent. And boy, if there was ever a topical issue, this is it. Job 1A is finding talent, 1B is keeping good talent. First off, though, I'd like to start off by thanking Explore Business for being our sponsoring partner for this series called Chamber College. At this point, I'd like to introduce Anne-Marie Martell, marketing specialist at Explore, to say a few words of welcome. Anne-Marie?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm Anne-Marie from Explore Business. We just recently changed our name and brand, formerly known as Explore Enterprise Solutions. We're a national business internet company with over 40,000 subscribers. We're very excited to be partnering with the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Moncton for the Chamber College series, and we've learned a lot, as we will today, and we'll continue learning. So thank you.
Thank you, merci, Anne-Marie. I also want to remind everyone that we will have time for a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Il y aura une période de questions à la fin de la présentation. You can pose your question at any time using either the chat or the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Just type your question there and we'll pose as many as possible as time allows. So, a bit about Beverly. She has over 20 years of experience providing practical and innovative human resource management solutions. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from UNB and a certificate in HR management and psychology from St. Mary's University. She's a member of the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources and the Society for Human Resource Management. Bev is the founder of Smart Human Resource Solutions, Inc., which provides premium HR consulting services for all aspects of the employee life cycle, including retention, which makes her the perfect person to speak to us today. So with that, I'll turn over the podium to Beverly to lead today's discussion. Bev?
Great. Thanks, John. All right, I'm just going to pop my screen up. So just to start, I thought it was interesting. I did a quick LinkedIn poll last week, and if any of you participated, thank you so much for entering your comments. Polls, you never know what kind of engagement you're going to get, but this one actually got quite a bit of engagement. And I was just asking the audience, the network, what are some of the most important things to you when choosing an employer? So thinking about what's going to make them want to stay with an organization. What are some of those key points? And I gave them 4 options. And obviously I asked for additional input if there was something that wasn't there that they wanted to add. And this was the response. It was kind of what I was expecting, but I guess so positive work environment ended up on top with compensation and benefits. I really thought flexible work arrangements would come out higher. And then I was really shocked about training opportunities. And then after the fact, because one of the things, and we're going to talk about this, one of the things that employees say that makes them consider leaving, or they do leave an organization, is advancement opportunities. And with that is learning opportunities. So if I had said advancement opportunities, I'm thinking this might have received a bit of a higher of a score, but I still think it's interesting to show. And because I often tell clients that having training opportunities is a great thing to have, because it could be something that may make somebody want to leave. But seeing these results, I'm not sure that it's up there anymore as much. But anyway, I think advancement opportunities are definitely something we should consider to change out that training opportunities. So that, having said that, what we see for the most part, the reasons why employees quit. Number one, salary and benefits, or I shouldn't say number one, varies for everybody, but these are the top 4. Better balance. And so that's where flexible work arrangements would come in, or just the workload, I guess, or the expectations of the hours of work or the amount of work. Career advancement, as I said, is definitely one of the factors. And find a greater purpose. So if somebody's not aligning with the purpose of the company, or if the company doesn't have a clear purpose or direction, then they may go look for other opportunities. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some solutions that can hopefully help improve in each of these areas to reduce and mitigate the chances of you losing some of your top talent. So some of those solutions we're going to look at: recruitment. We're going to talk about recognition, communication, compensation, performance, and people. And so I know we had 4 reasons why people leave, and so I'm hopefully expanding a little bit to hit on each of those 4 with some broader solutions. So throwing in some statistics, just I think these are very interesting, but 61% of employees say that the realities of their new job differ from expectations that were set during the interview process. So this one stood out for me, and I think for a number of reasons, and we'll talk a little bit about why recruitment is so important and how it really does all start here. So if you're looking to build a really great retention strategy, you really do need to start at the recruitment stage. So in order to, to recruit properly, to make sure that you have the right people, you set the right expectations, so you clear up and, don't have a good majority of your employees, 61% perhaps, who have an unclear expectation of the job once they do get into the job. It's important to implement some of these steps. So we always talk about how important it is to have a really great recruitment strategy. And that doesn't mean that you need to, have this fully formal process. You don't have to have one person dedicated to it if your company can't afford that, but you need to have a process. So you need a plan. You want to make sure that your process is consistent every time. So this is all part of the branding too, right? And we talk about this reason why people leave organizations is because they don't align with the company, or they don't, the company isn't the brand, or the presence in the community isn't what, where they want it to be. So the recruitment is really a great opportunity to start your branding and set the expectation. So as part of this, have a plan, just have a process, even if it's a quick checkbox, so that if it's not the leader or the owner of the organization doing the recruitment, if it's somebody else, a mid-manager, at least the process is consistent and that everybody is getting that same experience. So once you develop your plan, you really do need a job description for the position. And that's why I think 61% of employees in this particular poll that I saw said that the expectations do differ, is because there's not a clear expectation of what the job is. And, we actually had an example recently where the company hired somebody to fill a position, and then we only were asked to develop a job description after they had hired somebody. And so we really explained the importance of flipping that around, having your expectations of, the duties around the job, so that you can more clearly match up the candidate and their experience and their likes and their desires for what it is that they like to do and the type of work they like, and make sure it aligns with the position you're hiring for. Nothing will frustrate an employee more than getting into an organization and finding out that what they thought they were going to do is not what they're doing. So having a great job description is important. And this is a live document. We're not suggesting that you have to do this and it's going to be your forever document. These are always living, and we always encourage you to review them on an annual basis with employees. So, because things change, and it's a great opportunity to have a conversation with employees. So, but if you have one to start with, then it certainly helps, clear up anything in as far as expectations. Having a scoring matrix with your recruitment process, this just helps in the recruitment and making sure that everybody is measuring the elements of what it is you're looking for from the employee, the candidates, and so that everybody on your team is using a similar scoring matrix, so that you do have a way to, even though it's super subjective, recruitment's always going to be, have a really strong element of subjectivity. But at the end of the day, you've got something more objective to use as a way to decide on whether you have, you're hiring the right person. I suggest you screen candidates and screen applicants. We are so busy and we're running short, and I know that hiring, we're kind of behind the 8 ball on hiring. But one thing you can do for yourself is a great return on investment is do a bit of pre-screening. So instead of having 5 or 6 people come in for an interview, save yourself a bit of time, schedule some phone virtual interviews. This is a great way to meet people. Having an opportunity to chat and see somebody verbally is really wonderful. So take 20 minutes to schedule those and meet with people, and it really will help improve the accuracy of when you do actually bring people in for that longer interview. Excuse me. It's a better investment of time for sure. And conducting psychometric testing, I so encourage this one, and it's not expensive. And again, it's an offline topic maybe we can have about your different options for psychometric testing, but this is a really important aspect of the recruitment process. And I strongly encourage everybody to consider using this. And it's not just good for the recruitment process, but these tools, they can be used through the whole life cycle of an employee. So you can use them to determine measure the success of or the likelihood that the employee is going to succeed in the job up front. And so it certainly is it's a help to, as part of that scoring matrix. It's, whatever, a quarter or a third of your decision making, you can use that. But then the reports that you usually get, you can get some leadership reports, coaching reports, and then you can use these to help coach the employee, to help develop them throughout their life cycle. And if we look at advancement opportunities or learning opportunities as a reason why people will leave, it's because nobody's talking to them about their career development. So when you have a tool like the psychometric testing and you have a coaching report or a leadership report that you can use and speak to and actually have an objective viewpoint that you can talk to the employee about how they might be able to improve in some particular areas, it's so valuable. And a lot of these tests you can use if you want to measure somebody against another position. So if you hire an employee as an administrative assistant, let's say, and you want to consider them for a sales position or a leadership position, you can measure them against those positions to see what the likelihood would be that they would be successful in those roles. So anyway, I highly encourage these. And with recruitment comes onboarding. And so this is another key point, and you'll see the statistics that show that onboarding is going to be one of your key tools for retention. So all the statistics that you read, all the headlines you read, that onboarding is one of the key factors in improving the likelihood of somebody succeeding and staying with an organization. I guarantee that it will be well worth your investment of time. And so just a few things that you might want to consider as part of your onboarding. I talk about a motivation checklist. I do have a few toolbox items that I'm going to share with you at the end that they'll email out. And one of them is the motivation checklist. And this is just asking the employees some questions about, what motivates them. Is it money? Is it learning opportunities? Is it time off? Really finding out what is important to them and what makes them want to come to work every day. And asking some personal questions too. Just getting to know the employee really shows that you're investing early on in the employee. Make them feel special. And that's what this is really all about, right? Really making them feel special and like they belong. I'm not covering diversity, equity, inclusion today. That's certainly a hot topic as well. But there's lots of little things that I'm going to talk about along the way that will help support your efforts in that area. And this is one of those key points that I would highly recommend, is getting to know your employees. And so find a buddy. So don't take it upon yourself as the leader necessarily to be the person that has to be the go-to, but make sure that there's somebody available for that employee to be able to talk to. And some of the questions they might feel are silly questions, and they might not be comfortable going to a leader, but they might feel comfortable going to a coworker. It's important that this person can help show them the ropes, if you will. Asking for feedback about the onboarding process. You're always building. Everything in HR is a living document, a living process, if you will. So ask for feedback. How can we make this process better for the next employee? How was it for you? And definitely ask for feedback. That's another piece of that, making employees feel included. And actually, if I think back to the survey I did on LinkedIn, one of the things that somebody commented that wasn't on the list when I did the poll was the opportunity to provide input. that was really important to them when looking for an employer, is those opportunities. So when you're asking for feedback at the very beginning of the employee relationship, then you're setting the bar for, hopefully more opportunities to ask the employees for input, and make it fun. Again, it's, there's so much paperwork. I really try to encourage people to not have an employee touch a pen or a piece of paper in the first day. If you can make it fun, and whatever that looks like for you and your organization, then please try to do that. Could be a lunch, it could be a team breakfast, have some balloons. Like, it's, this is your opportunity to really tell the employee, look, this is what it's like to work here. And this is how we value and treat employees from day one. And using the motivation checklist, if you have this up front before the employee even starts, you can start to personalize this experience too, right? So, maybe it's, a gift on their desk when they arrive, or anyway, there's one thing I talk about within the onboarding program that we work with and that we've developed for clients, and it's creating an onboarding survival kit. So I like to have a little, basket or whatever that looks like, a gift pack, and have some things in it that are, important or fun for the employee and starting out, whether it be some company swag, water bottles, could be some treats that they said that they like as part of the motivation checklist. So anyway, just try to make it fun. Okay, so onward, 79% of employees who quit a job claim lack of appreciation was a major reason for leaving. So this is another big area, and I have the heading here, make this a priority. So I really encourage you to make recognition a priority, and it does not come naturally for most people, and that, that's fine and that's understandable. But as a leader, I encourage you to make it a priority in the organization. Make it a priority for yourself, and also make it a priority for your managers. So what gets measured gets done. Set recognition giving goals for yourself and your managers. Send 1 or 2 thank you cards a week. Could be a goal. That's a SMART goal, right? It's measurable, it's specific, and holding managers accountable. So make it part of the criteria for the success of yourself and the manager as a leader. Are we doing it consistently? We set the goal, we said we were going to do it, and are we actually doing it? So, and as a leader, if there's nobody, if you're at the top and there's nobody holding you accountable, then ask a friend, ask somebody, but make sure that you're also holding yourself accountable for giving recognition. I say schedule it. If you have to throw it in your calendar, again, what gets measured gets done, then put it in your calendar. Make sure the reminder pops up. Make sure you're asking your managers, get them to show you that they've actually committed and that they're doing this on a consistent basis. So, yeah, very important. Asking employees, right? Be transparent about it, open about it. Look, we want to make this part of our culture. And as part of that, we're going to be trying to do it more consistently, but we also want to hear from you. How could we do a better job at showing appreciation? Everybody likes something a little different. Thinking about this and looking back on the motivation checklist, not everybody wants time off. Not everybody wants money. Not everybody wants, a gift card or whatever. And, really thinking about from a cost perspective too, time off that does cost the company money. It also means that it puts some pressure on other employees to make up for that time that the employee's off. So, maybe there's an opportunity for a training course or a book, something that is, personal. And I guess I've skipped ahead a little bit, but asking employees how they like to be recognized and making it personal. So, and not worrying about treating everybody the same. We hear this a lot, right? What's the difference between equity and equality? And just making sure that you're doing something to recognize people. And when I'm talking about this, like it could be a card, right? We're not talking anything really, it doesn't have to be monetary. Sometimes just a few words of thanks. It can certainly be an email, but there's lots of studies that show that sending a card, handwritten card, is much more powerful. So maybe it's something that you can do as part of, like I said, your annual goals and creating that culture of recognition. All right, so 74% of employees who felt listened to by their employer were more engaged at work and more effective in their roles. So it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning, right? We're starting in the very beginning. We want to set the stage for opening up those lines of communication right from the beginning and making sure that your communication is effective. You're getting back to candidates when you say you're going to get back to them. You're communicating along the way. All those little things are going to show candidates that, you know, if the communication is really great at the beginning, the chances are, right, past performance, best predictor, future performance, this is what it's going to be like to work as an employee. If your communication is terrible at the recruitment stage, it's not really setting a good stage for what it might be like as an employee. So we get a lot of questions on communication and how, how companies can be better. We talk about communication strategies. And again, not talking about anything too formal. It's just setting some top priorities for what you're going to do to make sure that you're communicating with employees. So I have some examples here, and the title is Stay Interviews Lead to Fewer Exit Interviews. I'm going to talk about stay interviews in a second, but being transparent. So I get this question a lot too from different clients, how much information do I share? And, we like to say share as much as you feel comfortable with, but the more information you can share, the better. It reduces the uncertainty. If the employees feel like there's a lot of secrecy or that they're not getting the full picture, then it just, it really reduces that level of engagement. And obviously that's what we're trying to mitigate here. So on the transparency side, one of the things that I like to recommend is having a dashboard. So whether you have formal goals that you've set for yourself, the organization, employees, or informal goals, just if you have a vision of sorts, I talk about having this dashboard where most of us are visual learners. And so having something that we can see on a regular basis to be able to measure against, how we're doing. So have this available, whether you have a virtual intranet or, can be on a whiteboard, a bulletin board, something to use as part of your regular meetings with employees. Here's how we're doing compared to our goals, and having that measure. Employees love to see the progress that they're making, and it could be as a team or individual. So, if you can consider creating this dashboard, again, doesn't have to be fancy. It goes back to those, even the thermometers, right? When we do a fundraising campaign, there's a reason why we have those in place, because it motivates people to do a good job and to try to push. Everybody loves that friendly competition. So if you can, open up and be transparent and have something to share with employees compared to how you're doing, and try not to do it just one time a year at the end of the year, right? Using it as you go along, you're going to increase your chances of success on those goals if you're doing that and measuring it and sharing that information along the way. But also you're going to let employees feel like they're more involved, and that they might even have a say. They might have some feedback. And so that's where moving into asking for feedback during the review process. Even if you don't have a formal review process or you don't have anything formalized, obviously we encourage it. But if you don't, still have a process where you're asking employees for feedback anytime you get for your managers. And this is really all about setting the stage and creating that culture of open communication. So make sure you're asking your managers to be asking employees for feedback. And so one of the other comments I get to is sometimes people are afraid to ask for feedback because then employees get discouraged if you don't implement their ideas. And so again, it's about being transparent. Look, we want to hear everybody's ideas. This is blue sky, anything goes, nothing silly. Share what you can, there might be a little nugget in there somewhere, but also being very honest that we can't do it all, right? There might be reasons why we can't. There could be budgetary limitations or resource, lots of reasons why we might not be able to do and implement everybody's suggestions. But being honest with that is, letting them know that that's life, right? That's life. We're not going to be able to do it all. But when you do implement an idea, if somebody's idea does come and, you create, implement it, or you create a new process around it, or you create efficiencies, whatever it might be, celebrating that success is also important, letting them know. So that encourages other people that, what, and maybe I gave 10 ideas, but one stuck and I got rewarded for it. So I guess a few ideas. And then conducting stay interviews. So I'm sure some of you on the call here may have heard of stay interviews, and these are becoming more popular. Call it whatever you will. There's no rules around what it's called. It's just having an opportunity to ask employees for some feedback. So some common or questions that you might ask during this process would be, and these are questions that we ask sometimes at the end, right? That's why it talks about these lead to fewer exit interviews. Sometimes these are questions we're asking at the end, like, what made you look forward to coming to work every day? Well, if you can ask these throughout the process, and you can hopefully fix some of those areas that employees aren't happy with, then it will lead to fewer exit interviews. So what do you look forward to each day? What do you like most? What do you like least about working here? What keeps you working here? Maybe on the flip side, and this is what we ask in the exit interview, what made you finally decide to leave, right? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? What was that, that thing? And so if you're asking like, what keeps you here? Then those are the things that you really want to try to hone in on, and making sure that that employee remains engaged. If you could change something about your job, what would it be? How do you like to be recognized? So that kind of goes to the previous example of, how do we ask employees how they want to be recognized? This would be a great opportunity to do that. And what talents are not being used currently in your role that you would like to use? So there's lots of different examples of this one, and I'll use myself as an example. I love to be creative. I love when I get the opportunity to do something fun and innovative and colorful. And obviously in my role as HR, you wouldn't think that I have an opportunity to do that. This is actually a good example, right? Creating a presentation like this helps, lets me use that right side of my brain, do something different. The other thing I do, and if anybody on the call knows me, and we may have chatted about this, but there's a concept that I use, and it's called Lego Serious Play. I encourage you to Google it. It's a really neat concept, and it's about being creative and helping your employees think differently, think with the right side of their brain, use their hands to think rather than using a two-dimensional way of thinking. So you have some employees that might have jobs that are very administrative, very two-dimensional, very, process driven, but they might have a really creative side of their brain that you're not tapping into. And so by asking them this question, then maybe you'll find an opportunity for them to do something that's a little outside their job, but it keeps them motivated. All right, what's the statistic? When employees learned that they were earning less than a colleague, 59% looked for a new job. And I have been hearing lots of different examples or comments about compensation. And, if employees found out that so-and-so was making more than them, they'd be upset. Or, we have to make sure that these people are making the same amount of money because they talk, and if they find, so anyway, I've heard a lot recently. And so my response and my headline here is Money Talks. You need a playbook for compensation. So one of the big reasons why people leave organizations is compensation and benefits. They don't feel like they're being paid fairly. They don't feel valued, and they don't feel like their salary is, based on market. We're getting calls and hearing companies say that employees are saying that, the competitor down the street is paying a lot more, and they're saying, I'm going to leave unless you can pay me more. And so then we're hearing clients that are giving retention bonuses, and sometimes big retention bonuses, but it's a short term, it's a band-aid fix, right? And so we're saying, without understanding what's really happening and what's really demotivating that employee, then just putting money to the problem is not the best solution. But if you can step this back a little bit, and if you have a playbook for your compensation, it makes it easier to say to the employee, you know what, I know that our salaries are fair. They're comparative. I know what other organizations are paying. Somebody else might be paying more. We don't really know. Just to take it for face value that an employee said that another organization is paying more, I don't think we should be afraid to say, like, well, look, what goes into their total compensation package, right? Unless we know the full story, I can't make a decision just based on the fact that you said that they pay more and they said that they pay, $3 more an hour. There's way more to that, right? Total compensation isn't just about the salary. So, we need to look at the full picture. So having this playbook, if you set some parameters around what your compensation strategy looks like, it'll make it so much easier for you to make decisions, for you to feel comfortable sharing with employees about salaries, how salaries are determined, how people get increases. So for instance, having some salary ranges. So you know that ahead of time. You've done a great job at looking at your positions. We've done an evaluation on them. And I have this in here because this is something we help clients with, creating this playbook. But so we set this evaluation in motion, and we make sure that each of the positions is graded fairly, and that we're confident with that. And we're also confident with the salaries that are attached to those job grades, right? Because we've done a fair market review and we know what's happening out in the marketplace. And, anyway, so you're confident with that. But there also has to be some rules in the game too, right? What's your philosophy on giving an annual cost of living? We hear this often. People are like, oh, automatically, everybody, in this company just automatically gets a cost of living adjustment. Or we hear costs are going up, everything, gas is going up, food's more expensive. And so what are you, employer going to do for me to help make sure that we're offsetting those costs? So what's your philosophy around the cost of living? And there's some parameters that we can talk about that helps determine what those numbers should be, right? And so you have, you got to set your budget every year. So when you're determining your budget, you're actually setting the parameters around what's involved and what you're willing to pay. There also has to be a turn on point within this, that the company obviously has to be successful and has to make money. This isn't a given. So we always say there's these turn on points, but that's all part of the strategy that we're going to set the parameters. I'm spilling my tea everywhere. And so market adjustments, what's going to happen every year when you do your reviews? How much are you willing to increase markets? What if you find a market is paying way more in 1 year compared to another? Are you willing to go to that full market, or will you meet halfway? Do you have a 2-year plan? What does that look like? Skill set match adjustments. So these are really personal, looking at the employee. So when an employee says, I'm upset because I found out somebody else was making more than me. Well, yeah, you know what? They are, maybe, because within our compensation strategy, we actually have it built in there that you can make more than somebody else. So we have our ranges, and we have expectations around, and we have rules around how you move through the range. And so, yeah, you can make more than somebody else, but chances are if you're making more than somebody else, or if a colleague is making more than you, it's because they've earned it. So I highly encourage companies to look at these different variations of, where an employee's salary falls. And this also helps you at the very beginning when you're recruiting, determine where an employee falls and when they come in. So it helps you with your negotiation, right? You're not just pulling, and this is what we hear too, employees get frustrated because they feel like companies are just pulling salaries out of the air. And so once we've created this playbook, it takes all the guesswork out of it for you. You just really, you open up your playbook and you look, and based on the candidates, like, oh, they fall right here. That's what my offer is. But there's also things like bonuses. Do you have pay based on performance and variable pay programs? What happens in the event of a promotion? When somebody moves to a higher level position, they move to a new grade. How do you determine where they start in that grade? What happens if somebody's taking on added responsibilities, projects? What if they sit on committees? If you have this playbook and you have all of these parameters figured out, then it takes, like I said, that guesswork out of it for you. And it allows you to really transparently say to employees, look, we have our playbook, and it's not one supervisor or manager deciding all this for each employee. We've actually, we have the rules for the game determined, and so it's a fair process. So yeah, this is a big one. And benefits, obviously, we're talking about reasons why people leave is because salary and benefits. And so you have to remain competitive. And so part of this playbook is we encourage you to do an annual review on your compensation and your benefits to make sure that you're up to date. And it doesn't have to be crazy formal. It could just be, reaching out to some colleagues. I also encourage you, when you are recruiting people that, you find out what's important to them, other candidates, are there some great benefits? Have they heard of anything really great happening? What are, some innovative things that other companies are doing? There's a great opportunity to find out, what might be happening out and about in the industry. All right, so Gallup is a company that does, and chances are you've read the Gallup poll says, so Gallup suggests setting clear expectation is the most foundational element of employee engagement. So absolutely, employees, if they don't have clear expectations and they don't understand what's expected of them, then they're more likely to become disengaged and frustrated. So this is, again, just one statistic I pulled that I thought was interesting, but 50% of employees say they have a clear understanding of what's expected of them. So I think this number could be anywhere from 10 to 100% of employees, depending on the organization, have a clear understanding of what's expected of them. And so I guess I'm talking about it because I think it is really important that you do make it very clear. So it goes back to the what I mentioned about having a clear job description in the very beginning, so that employees have a they have a fair understanding of what it is their job's going to be, and that they don't become frustrated because it's something different. Well, then once they're in the job, you need to be very clear about what's expected of them. And actually, I'll go back to the onboarding process. I didn't mention this, but during that onboarding process, it shouldn't be a secret. Here are the expectations. We always talk about the probationary period, what's expected, and is somebody going to pass their probationary period? It should be an open book test, is the way I describe it. You should be clearly outlining what it is you're going to be measuring employees on at the end of that probationary period. So have some expectations, and it could just be 1, 5, 10 things that you say, these are the things we're looking for, and this is what we're going to be measuring you on. And then have some regular meetings. Don't wait for the 6-month review to sit down with the employee and let them know how they're doing. Have some conversations along the way and let them know. But further to that, having a clear understanding of what's expected of employees, you really do as a company need to have a corporate strategy about what your corporate goals are. So again, it's good to have it formalized, and if you have a formal strategic plan, that's fantastic. But if you don't, as long as you're sitting down and setting out some expectations for your year, take 1 or 2 hours with you, your leadership team, the owners of the company, whoever it might be, and set some goals. And then that way you can share those with employees so that everybody's on the same page, right? We're all rowing in the same direction. So include employees in the process, right? Back to that blue sky, like, what do you guys think? What's your vision for the organization in the next 1 to 2 years? Developing SMART goals is going to be one of the really important factors in this. And again, what gets measured gets done. So if we set some SMART goals, we're setting employees up for success. Aiming for excellence. Just look at my time, make sure I got enough time here for questions. Aiming for excellence. I love this one. When we set expectations, we set these SMART goals, we're setting the kind of the benchmark for what's expected, right? This is the goalpost, but why not aim for excellence? And so I always encourage people, define what it means to exceed goals. Don't just tell employees what it is you expect of them and what it means to meet goals. Have a conversation, like create a culture where you're talking about exceeding excellence or aiming for excellence, exceeding goals. So talk about that. All right, well, if the goal is, to lose 10 pounds, I know it's not work related, but that's a goal people can relate to. If the goal is to lose 10 pounds, what's the stretch goal? So what does it mean to exceed? Well, if I could lose 12, then that would really be an exceed. Okay, well, then you can see how that might become the new measure of success. And that's where you want your employees, working towards, right? You want them aiming for that excellence. So talk about that. Focus on employee strengths, kind of goes back to what I was saying about, if there's other talents that employees have that they're not using, what's going to keep them motivated and engaged? Well, it's making sure you're focusing on strengths. And it's okay if you have 2 positions that do the exact same thing. 2 of the people might have different interests, and somebody might be, very organized and loves to plan, and somebody else may not like that, but they like to be a doer and just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Well, make sure you're really honing in on what those employees' strengths are. Scheduling one-on-one coaching meetings, nothing more important. And if you can make this a priority, And if you have nothing formal to discuss, the very least, meeting with employees to show that you're interested in them, have some specific questions, you know, what went well this week? What was your high point? What was your low point? You know, is there something that you would like to work on to do better next week? If you're using your dashboard as an example to see how you're doing towards measuring and achieving your goals, use that as part of your conversation. And, you know, what can you do to help make sure that we move the needle so that when we meet next time and show this dashboard that we've actually seen some progress. So there's some really great conversation that can happen. And also it's an opportunity to ask the employee, you know, how are you doing, right? We haven't really talked about this, and this is kind of the touchy-feely stuff, but making employees feel like they belong and that they're engaged in their work is making sure that people are, you know, actually care about them. And that's actually one of the other takeaways I'm going to send or share with you, or the 12 elements that Gallup uses as part of their engagement when they do any engagement type surveys. And with clients, it's asking, how do employees feel? Do they feel valued? Do they feel like somebody cares about them? So these meetings can be important. It doesn't just have to be about work. It can be finding out what's happening with the employee in their personal lives too. It's an opportunity to provide feedback and then holding people accountable. So this is, you know, none of this will work, and none of this measuring of success and developing goals will really work if we're not holding people accountable. So that's important. And as I said, it's a two-way development. Or a two-way street, and asking them for feedback. And I just have one point at the end there about developing your managers. So this is going to be key, that if you are not developing your managers, you're not investing in their leadership development, you know, providing additional responsibility opportunities, training opportunities, then you're gonna, like, that's such an important piece. Those middle managers, those people that are leading your other people, they're super important. So you really do need to step back. And if you need to kind of have a different focus when it comes to those managers, then that's okay. And it will show those managers that you're investing in them too. So, and when I say develop your managers, and this isn't a topic for today, but it's important to realize that we don't always, just because somebody's good at what they do today, and if they're not leading people today, it doesn't make them an automatic great leader. And I'm sure some of you smiled when I said that, because, you know, right, how often do we just promote people because they're awesome salespeople, that then we give them the responsibility of a team of 10 other salespeople, and they crash, and we're like, the managers, the leaders, or whoever are like, well, I didn't see that coming, right? So we have to do our homework in making sure that we're developing the right skills in people, we're identifying the right people to be in leadership positions, and that the people that aren't slated or aren't skilled or don't have the skill sets to do leadership positions, how are we keeping them motivated, right? If they're your top performers, they're your top salespeople, we just don't, we think that that's the next step, right? That's what's going to keep them motivated and engaged. And they may think that's what's going to keep them motivated and engaged too. But unless we know that they're going to be set up for success as a leader, then we're not doing them any favors. And I'll take it back to the psychometric testing that I talked about in the very beginning. This is where that comes into play, that we can do some great assessments on those that are, you know, more apt to succeed in leadership positions. So you can use that testing to determine who's going to be a better leader and not, or not. All right, this is the last point, and then we'll stop for questions. So having a friend improves engagement at work. Some of you may have heard this, and I know some of you may be shocked by it, but happiness really is having a BFF at work. So I will say that when I do exit interviews, the #1 consistent answer I get when I ask, what are you going to miss the most about the company, is always the people. Always, always, always. Or when you ask people during stay interviews, what is it that you love about the company? It's the people. So don't lose sight of the fact that, you know, obviously you're running a company, you're serving customers, you're selling a product, you know, whatever it might be. That's the purpose of your organization. But the reason why people stay and the reason why people, you know, what they're going to miss is the people. So really, we need to focus on the people aspect of work. So creating a culture where friendship is valued is a key component of making sure that your employees are engaged. It's not going to be the same for everybody, right? We have our social butterflies and we have our employees who we don't hear from often, but those ones we don't hear from often, we still need to make sure that they feel like they belong and that they're connected with somebody. So how can we do this? Well, your leaders need to talk about the importance of having a friend at work. So they need to encourage it from the top up, right? Top down, that it's important. It's okay. We encourage it. We actually want you guys to feel like you have friends here, and that this is a place where you're excited to come, and you're excited to come to work to share your good news with your friends at work. And again, a topic for another day, but whenever we're talking about mental health and employees who potentially might have to go off work, or the doctor has suggested that they go off work, or as a company, you think that an employee might benefit from taking time off work, I always say step back and be cautioned about that, because sometimes work is the only happiness that employees get. So by suggesting that they take time off work to go home, maybe where home isn't happy, or to go home where they're going to be alone, isn't the best thing for their well-being and their trying to overcome whatever it is that they're experiencing. So yeah, just shows the value of having friendships at work. Create interactive opportunities for friendships to blossom, whatever that might look like, team building activities. Sometimes I think we feel like that's non-work related and maybe takes us away from our goals, but there is value in having those interactive opportunities. Encourage friendly dialogue. This is a big one. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but I'll get this question a lot. Like, oh my gosh, we have employees, like they spend so much time just standing at each other's offices, chatting, and right. What's that balance? What's the fine balance between, okay, we encourage that, right? We want you to be hanging out in the kitchen talking, but we have work to do. So back to talking about measuring about performance. If you're doing well measuring performance, if you have an employee who is way off the mark, not even meeting expectations, you have some talking points. Look, we love that you're chatting in the kitchen, but you're not even meeting your goals. So let's find a solution here. We need you focused on your goals, and then there will be time to have these chats at work. So anyway, that's a big one we get. Communicate often, back to the communication one, as often as you can. Encourage recognition, birthdays, milestones, achievements, celebrate your employees, encourage them to celebrate each other. And I say give employees a BFF responsibilities, right? Take it off your shoulders as a leader. This goes back to tapping into employees' talents. Maybe you've got somebody who's, that party planner, and it's okay. That's, there has to be a balance, right? They have to be achieving their goals. But for those employees who are exceeding, or, at least meeting or maybe exceeding goals, but they're looking for those added fun elements that are going to help keep them engaged. Maybe you have people who are responsible for that friendship aspect at work. All right, I'll leave you with this and then we'll move on to some questions. But what I try to tell people now is having some great HR practices in place is your differentiator. So when you are having employees measure, you up against another employee, or trying to decide whether they should stay or leave, they're asking about HR practices. They're talking, what policies do you have in place? Like, how are salaries determined? Is there a process for rewarding employees, recognizing employees? Is there a process for measuring performance? I think I already said that. But there's so many things that are happening now that employees are starting to recognize that this is important. It's not just about the, what it looks like from the outside in, but that it's actually, what's happening inside. And so this is happening at the interview stage too, where employees are starting to ask more questions about HR practices. And so companies that don't have anything in place may not get that advantage, right, to attract and then retain great employees. So yeah, so anything you can put in place is definitely going to set you apart from potential other competitors. All right, questions. Whew, I know I talked fast.
That's okay, Bev. Thanks very much. It was a great and comprehensive presentation. And we have about 10 minutes for questions. So I'd encourage everyone to please click on either the chat or the Q&A buttons. if you'd like to pose a question to Bev. So fire away. I jotted down 4 or 5 here myself, Bev, that popped into my mind. I often hear this from colleagues who are supervisors at businesses, usually about my age, and they talk about, oh, you know, young people today, they're always looking for the next big thing. Is there a generational difference with retention? Are millennials more mobile and are older workers, quote, more loyal? And are they looking for different things out of the work experience?
Yeah, and they are. And I mean, that's, you know, there's lots of different things, you know, of the stuff that we talked about. If I could say anything of that, I would say that the younger generation really want the clear expectations. They want to really know what's expected of them, how they can, you know, meet or exceed goals. So they're really, you know, really big on that. Everybody loves recognition. That's an ageless, you know, act that we can give everybody recognition. Pay and benefits, I would say younger generations are looking more holistic at the total compensation package. So it's, you know, it's not just the pay, but it's what else is included, right? What else am I going to get? I think the older generation was just more accustomed to kind of looking at the pay. The benefit side, a younger generation are looking at a more versatile or holistic benefit offering too, right? And they're looking at, you know, is there wellness included? And so they're thinking of it differently, and maybe because they're hearing, they're doing more research or whatever it might be. So there absolutely is some differentiators or differentials between the generations. And it's you know, nothing more than a quick Google search will kind of show some statistics on what those employees need. But that's where I say, going back, if you're asking everybody the questions, what motivates you, and you're having those conversations, then you don't need the statistics, you don't need the Googles, right? You're asking specifically, you know, every individual, what is it that you need? And so they're having an opportunity to share. So hopefully you can customize your efforts, because you're going to get some good feedback.
Are you hearing more about companies that establish, you know, work with a greater sense of purpose or corporate social responsibility, have a better chance of retaining people because they feel they're on some sort of mission beyond just, you know, the 9 to 5? Yeah.
And it really is individualized for that too. Like that's not important to some people. It's just not. So that's where your recruitment efforts are super important, because if that's something that's important to your organization, if giving back to the community, if you're going to be expecting employees to contribute to, you know, attend some events and be part of the community, then you need to be asking about that at the recruitment stage, right? How important is that to you? What sorts of things do you like to do to be involved? And if you get a vibe that somebody's not purpose driven, then, you know, then there's a good, you know, that's part of your scoring matrix, right? They didn't score high on that. So I think, you know, companies that are purpose driven need to look for other people who fill that and look for that value.
I hear often from companies in the private sector, and especially I think among not-for-profits, who struggle to pay at a scale that attracts top talent. And in this tight labor market, you know, the worker has a bit of leverage there. I know just personally at the chamber, the last 3 people that we've lost, 2 have gone to work for government and 1 is leaving to work for an agency completely funded by government. And so it's hard to compete against that in this market. How do we manage that?
So one of the things I've done actually just recently, I have 2 clients that I'm doing full compensation reviews for, and it's not just looking at actual market salaries, but we look at the full spectrum of the total compensation, and we look at it with respect to best practices. Like for instance, you know, best practice says that 30% of your salary budget should go towards, you know, your benefits and other perks, so paid time off and that sort of thing. So it's kind of goes back to my last slide where I said, if you have good HR practices in place, if you lose somebody because you couldn't pay them that top salary they were looking for, then at least you're confident that you have a full total compensation package. You can't, like, not everybody's motivated by that top dollar, right? So you can't put all your money in your salary bucket. You've got to spread it out over, you know, wellness, benefits, paid time off. And so if you've done your homework and you have a good understanding of what goes into your total compensation package, something you can be proud of, then, you know, you're going to want to attract people that value that full package and aren't focused just on one salary amount and earning, you know. And back to the compensation strategy, if you have a goal where, you know what, we have a strategy every year, we look at cost of living, we look at market adjustments. As long as you have a fair process in place, then you are going to attract people who understand the value in that. And the other ones, if you lose them, then, and if they say they went because of money, I say there's probably 4 other reasons why they went too. And so not to get too caught up in trying to always dump more money into that salary bucket. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that was great. Time for one more question. And we've been hearing a lot, especially during COVID and since then, about the importance of employee mental health. Any strategies or tips on how a company or organization can create better mental health practices in the workplace?
Yeah, so there are some really fantastic tools online through the Canadian Mental Health Association. Sometimes it's just kind of figuring out where to find this information, but just, and I say, and even with what I presented today, don't worry about trying to do it all, right? Pick something. So same thing with mental health. It's starting to create a culture where mental health is where, you know, we try to create an open, honest conversation about it. Sometimes it's getting those leaders talking about it too, right? So including it as part of your regular meetings, having a strategy where, you know, you have information posted, you share information. I forget what the statistics are, but like there's a good number of employees said that they do not feel comfortable sharing anything about their mental health with employers. And so having those one-on-one coaching meetings, it's, you know, you're not having direct conversations about sitting just talking about mental health. You're having those regular meetings, so you get the pulse of what's happening. And so by having those regular conversations, it allows leaders or even the employees to feel more comfortable to open up. So yeah, tons of great resources. And I mean, I can certainly, I'll put that down as to share a few links on that as well, because there's some great programs where you can get free stuff. There's one, it's called Not Myself Today through the Canadian Mental Health Association. And with the kit, you get buttons and you get posters, and there's lots of free stuff with it. And it just is about encouraging and opening up the dialogue on mental health.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, because you had brought up about flex work arrangements, John, early in our conversation, and I didn't talk about it. It is important. And I'm getting a lot of questions about it, but it might be an offline topic if anybody's interested in talking more about how this kind of factors into all this engagement piece. And, you know, if you're an organization that's chosen to come back fully to work, or you're looking at a hybrid, or, you know, I'm certainly open to having a conversation if somebody, you know, wants to know how that really is included in this whole engagement question.
Great. Thanks, Bev. That also gives me an opportunity to mention our Workforce of the Future event on November 17th at the Delta. And we'll have a panel that day on creating a flexible hybrid work environment, which I think will be very interesting. So I really want to thank Bev Summers for sharing her knowledge with us today. It's great, Bev. This is the second session you've done with us on Chamber College, and both have been outstanding.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to mention before we leave, we have a few major events coming up. One of them is the Workforce of the Future Summit on November 17th. The second one is our Business Excellence Awards, which will be held less than 2 weeks from today on October the 18th at the Delta Beausejour. And I would hazard a guess that most of the finalists up for awards that night have really good HR practices, because it really, you know, flows into all aspects of their operation. There's still time to purchase tickets. You can find all the information you need on our website, ccgm.ca. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. Thanks again, Bev. Pleasure as always. Merci encore, and have a great day, everybody. Bye for now.